having health workers worried for their lives in such a time.
And that's where you'd say government is really dishonest, you know, to say the plain truth, because that should be the expectation. But you'll find that these health workers, 6 of them who contracted Ebola, were just working on people without PPE. Even as we speak now, there are facilities that don't have PPE. It's not a new thing, you know. The ministry or government will try to cover up as much as they can, but information still comes out because these are the health workers on ground. At least we get information from the Uganda Medical Association, and you wouldn't want to think that doctors would be out to tell lies all the time that we don't have gloves. I have been to health facilities where the doctors who are doing, they call it triage. When you go to a hospital, there is that person who takes your blood pressure, your temperature, you know, asks you a few questions, how are you feeling? So that preamble information they give to the doctor. There are, you know, facilities just within Kampala Metropolitan where triage is being shared with a laboratory. You can imagine. Wow. A laboratory that has...
That is within Kampala's metropolitan area. Metropolitan.
Yes, not very far. You would want to think that maybe it's in the village. No, in Kampala Metropolitan. And if we are operating that way, then you would not fail to believe that doctors actually don't have gloves to carry out examinations on patients. Because sometimes these matters are life and death. If a doctor doesn't have gloves or cotton wool, or, you know, goes to stop the bleeding, sometimes they want to improvise to try and save a life.
How does that happen? What do they use in improvising?
You know, you'll find them using shirts, you'll find them using, you know, anything that is available. And when they don't have gloves, they will just, you know, say a prayer and say, God, I'm doing this to save a life. I hope I really save my life as well. And then they'll get into, you know, checking and whatnot, especially regarding accidents.
I was reading an article where interns at Mubende Hospital, which is the epicenter of this latest outbreak, were asking to be transferred because many of them are not senior house officers, or even house officers for that matter, and are simply observing. And then the Director of Health Services had a rebuttal that was very, I don't know even how to describe it, but he said, you need to understand how to deal with the disease as part of your training, so stop apparently making it a fuss. The reaction or the tone the official used might be wayward, but he could be speaking something that is true. At the end of the day, you need to stay there and understand how to deal with the disease. But shouldn't that be done in a more appropriate and, well, in a way that is attendant to the needs of those?
Unfortunately, today, the top officials from the Ministry of Health are going back to Mubende, the epicenter. I really hope the Director General, or whoever made that statement,
Mwesigye, Dr. Mwesigye.
Yes, he's going to be, and he has a record for making such statements.
Oh, interesting.
So I really hope he goes to Mubende and he enters the Ebola treatment unit without a mask, without protective gear, without, you know, let him just walk in like a man. Just like he's
not
telling,
a doctor.
Yes, just like he's telling those health workers to go in there and understand the situation. And, you know, that's where it goes wrong, because Uganda really does not invest a lot in the health sector. It's not priority. Our health is not priority in this country. And I say this because of, you know, visible reasons. If we signed the Abuja Declaration to contribute up to 15% of the local budget to the health sector, and a decade plus down the road, we've never fulfilled that. I mean, the health budget has never hit 10%.
What you have today actually is a combination of, to get the 15%, you have to combine education and health to get the 15%.
Yeah.
That's
So
an
you see,
irony here.
when it comes to medicines, you know, sometimes even this equipment that people use, it's all donations. Things like trainings, you can imagine. The World Health Organization right now is
on ground.
training our health workers, you know, about what to expect. These are, you know, it's just like an intern is really a doctor who has, you know, just 1 year left to
just
complete
1 year,
their studies.
sure.
Yeah. But you do not expect them to risk their life.
I mean, at that point, the fear and the nervousness is still fresh for them. There are so many things they've yet to encounter, although they've been told about them theoretically, that when you go into these particular battles, Ebola and any other outbreaks, this is what you will see. But allow me just pick your mind on the investigative process. When, for example, a patient comes in and they are presenting with all these symptoms and somebody's like, that is Ebola. However, you do not begin to treat Ebola before you are actually sure that it's Ebola. So the samples have to be taken to a Uganda Virus Research Institute and then back. Now, let's take the scenario, hypothetically, that the person is negative, but the sample, the duration of research has taken more than 24 hours. Within that time, if somebody is presenting with these symptoms, bleeding, vomiting, and they have high fevers, what is being done to them to manage them?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no single dose treatment for Ebola that is known world over. No. So what is done is they give supportive treatment. They only treat symptoms. So if you tell a doctor, now I have a strong headache, they'll treat the headache. If you have, you know, diarrhea, they'll give you ORS.
Wow.
So that's what they do. And it doesn't change anyway, whether your results come back negative or positive, you just continue on supportive treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. The essence is to ensure that you don't waste your organs and you can, you know,
figuratively speaking, how much money is government planning to put away to be able to curb this Sudan strain?
You know, when you talk about money, I was trying to find out from my sources, and I see Chris laughing. You know, yeah, it is funny because there is no money.
What do you mean there's no money?
Yeah, there is no money. In July, one of the health officials at the ministry, I think, had predicted through God, maybe. That time we were talking about monkeypox. And he said, you know, Ministry of Finance cut our budget up to 50%. So if we get an outbreak, for example, we get monkeypox outbreak, we will not be able to handle any emergency.
Any emergency
we will not be able to handle because we don't have money. And you know, that is visible because we have Ebola in the country, but who's running the thing? WHO, CDC, you know, partners as usual. Yeah, they're not there for a show. They're there for a reason. We cannot do what they're doing right now. Yeah.
Okay. I also want to find out from you, in terms of the outbreaks, we've had 7 outbreaks, and we've had an experience of different strains here in Uganda. Could you walk us through how, as a country, we managed to maneuver past those different episodes?
Yeah, well, the experience is, I think, a positive to us as a country, because that means that our people have some idea at all fronts, whether the health workers or, you know, even just us, the population, because fighting pandemics or epidemics or, you know, any outbreak of a disease is work combined at 2 fronts. Health workers do their part, we also do our part. So the fact that we've had these strains, you know, come through in phases, people have some idea. They know now, this Ebola, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this. Even when they have to keep on adding, you know, speaking each and every day about what to do. That's the good thing. But also, the other good thing scientifically is that there is a lot of information. You know, science now knows these strains and understands how they manifest in humans. And they would know that if we do this, you'd get better. If, you know, when COVID-19 broke out, they were trying medicines, saying, take this, take vitamin A, take azithromycin.
It was a cocktail of...
And later, you know, science found that drugs like azithromycin had no impact on COVID-19.
People had completely just, you know,
you can't
imbibed away.
And you cannot blame the scientists for that. But for some people who took it, it helped. For some, it did not work. You know, results are now out. Okay. That's the good thing when we have those strains running through. And Ebola is endemic in Africa, so it won't go away.
It won't go away.
Which then begs the question, what is Africa doing about it at large if it's not going to go away?
Yeah, and that's where the problem is, unfortunately, that we do not have enough resources to, you know, continue with research about these strains. Because what happens, I think you remember the worst case in West Africa.
Yes.
2 Americans.
That was really horrific.
Contracted Ebola. Those Americans never died. Even when Ebola was killing people like termites, you know, that have been set on fire. Those Americans were flown back home, and, you know, the scientists there thought and, you know, tried this and that. Those guys never died. And that was the spark of understanding and producing the vaccine that at least is available. But also that created a much deeper understanding of the manifestation of Ebola. But the fact that we don't have enough resources, especially money, you know, financing.
That financial muscle.
We have the scientists, but we cannot support them.
And then we have a problem of failing to allocate the little that we have to
the most important
aspects.
Yeah, because you'd think COVID-19 maybe opened our eyes.
That's the thing.
Maybe every regional referral hospital should have those gene expert machines and, you know, that kind of lab, because now the ministry said, I think by Friday, which is today, or probably next week, there will be 2 mobile labs in Mubende to try and ease the turnaround time for results. But you'd think maybe because COVID was there for some time and the way these things are tested are almost the same, would want to invest in that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question for me is in regards to data collection and transmission to the necessary parties. When you take on the Twitter handle of the Ministry of Health, the data that is there about Ebola outbreak statistics is as of 25th September. We have seen this during COVID-19. The data would be so outdated. In fact, you can believe World Health Organization would have more updated data than the country has about its own status of such, such viral outbreaks. Now, in regards to that, why do we have such a serious gap in data collection, compilation, and transmission?
The argument from the Ministry of Health has always been that our data teams are constrained by distances, are constrained by network failure, you know, are constrained. But these are things that you have learned over time.
Over time.
I don't really understand why the ministry would want to tell us today that, you know, our data teams are constrained by distance. I mean, when COVID was there, you knew that this distance is there. What did you think about it? Or, you know, the network, what did you think about it?
Okay, Walter Mwesigye, I'm afraid that's all we had time for, but I believe the conversation can continue. What's your Twitter handle?
At Mwesigye Walter.
At Mwesigye Walter, of course. All right, anything in terms of parting shots on public health care in the country?
Yeah, well, what I think is it's our duty, actually, that you protect yourself and protect your neighbor. Do not expect all the time that the ministry is going to be at your door, at your ear, you know, trying to tell you, do this, do that. No. Do it for yourself and do it for your neighbor. But where the case goes wrong, then the ministry can intervene. I mean, we can always cry about all these many things that we don't have. We can never get them in a day, and we shall not get them probably in a week or a year. But let's just do the simple things that we ought to do. That's the only way we can fight Ebola. I mean, Ebola has been in Congo endemically, but we've not had an outbreak since 2019. So just like we've been protecting ourselves, just do yourself the duty of a citizen. Protect you and protect your neighbor.
Okay, thank you very much, Walter Mwesigye, senior health reporter with Nation Media Group, and is embedded specifically with NTV.